Did you know there used to be female gladiators? Although they were extremely rare, gladiatrixes or gladiatrices would also do mostly the same things the men would do in the Colosseum. They were mostly seen as novelty acts in the ring, and they were really brushed aside. Hashtag not shocked. They were mostly forced to do really terrible things, such as family stage battles where they would battle alongside a man and a child against another, family and or group. And the Emperor Domitian also forced gladiatrixes to fight dwarves and little people because he thought that a woman fighting child-sized humans were to be shocking. Even though they could do the exact same thing as their male counterparts, most gladiatrixes were forced to do some pretty messed up stuff. I'm going to tell you the tea on the Tower of Pisa. It's a common misconception that a natural disaster made it tilt. That's wrong. They actually just royally messed up making it. When the foundation was laid in 1173, it wasn't done correctly, and when they started on the second floor, the foundation shifted. It took over 300 years for the Leaning Tower of Pisa to be constructed, because construction was halted twice, both times for war, and both lasting a little over 100 years. If the construction of the tower had not been halted due to war the first time, it wouldn't have had 100 years to compact and form in the ground, and the tower would have definitely fallen over. And with modern technology, they have ensured that the Leaning Tower of Pisa is not going to fall anytime soon. Thomas Edison didn't invent the light bulb. This is actually my favorite history fact to shock people, so this is probably going to be in multiple parts. In 1806, Englishman Humphrey Davy showed his electric lamp to the Royal Society. But the light burned out so fast, there was a race to improve it. A lot of people can be said to have invented the light bulb, but only one really stands out. An English chemist named Joseph Swan, who reconfigured the design and was playing with burners to try to figure out which material wouldn't burn out so fast. Swan was actually showcasing this invention in America when Thomas Edison thought he could figure it out. Go watch part 2 for the drama, honey. Thomas Edison didn't invent the light bulb, part 2. All Edison really did was find the material and filament to actually light it for an extended period of time without it blowing out. Edison then tried to pass the invention off as his own and tried to sue Swan for a patent infringement. But Swan already had a strong patent claim that was actually well documented in the United Kingdom. After a few courts and conversations were held, the two inventors were kind of forced to join forces, and they formed Edison-Swan United. Another thing about Thomas Edison, over the 1,000 patents that are under his name, most of those ideas were actually stolen from his young inventors that were his apprentices. Cleopatra wasn't Egyptian. Despite popular belief, the last queen of Egypt wasn't even born in Egypt. Psst, she was Greek. And a descendant of Alexander the Great's general, Ptolemy. Sorry, girl. The Romans made contraception extinct. In ancient Rome, they had a very natural, effective contraception. It was a plant called psyllium, or psyllium? Right here, this word. The Romans harvested it so much that they actually made the plant extinct. Not too much is known about this plant, but it is speculated that the seed of the plant was actually heart-shaped, which is why we associate heart with love. The Romans were wilding out with Nick Cannon. Rome was wild. Witches were never burnt at the stake. In America. Witch talk, please do not come for me. I am a fellow practicer. I'm an ally. Please don't. I wrote 2 15-page historiographical dissertations on the witch trials both in Europe and America. The Salem witch trials of 1692 were a very dark period of American history. They imprisoned nearly 200 people, no matter old man, homeless, or 4-year-old girl. They can put you in jail for anything and call it witchcraft. In America, they were tortured, stoned, or hung. They weren't burned at the stake. In the UK, that's a different story. They burned bitches. In the UK, they did everything the Americans did, but also they burned bitches. No, we're not here for that. Love to all of my Witch Talk fans and Balenciaga. Edwardian makeup could kill you. After the Victorian era, the Edwardian era showed the rise of mass cosmetics made for the consumer. Face creams were made with bleach, white powdered lead, which would lead to extreme poisoning, and also some even were made with arsenic. Rouges became extremely popular and were made with mercury, which is a highly toxic heavy metal that could cause a wide variety of issues. They also used a very poisonous plant called belladonna to color their eyelashes, which would make women go blind. Women would also go bald trying to curl their hair. They used a heat rod iron in a fireplace, and most women would burn their entire hair off, or they would curl their hair so much they would lose their hair from excessive curling. They gave their children death toys in the Victorian era. In the Victorian era, toys were brightly colored, mostly using lead paint, and lead was also malleable enough to where they made toy soldiers with it. And because lead paint doesn't have an unpleasant taste, children were very likely to put their toys in their mouth or lick them. And just one flake could be enough to poison them and attack their nervous system. Also in the Victorian era, they used baby bottles that were porous and basically were susceptible to very terrible bacterial growth, and basically kind of killed their children by accident, and which led to a low infant mortality rate. The Sims came from a fire. Those unfamiliar with the popular franchise, the creator Will Wright suffered a major loss, losing his house and all his possessions in the Oakland-Berkeley firestorm in 1991. Having always been passionate about architecture, Will Wright decided to create a game where you can simulate daily struggles and also build homes from scratch. It was this idea that gave him from losing his home that became the Sims franchise, which is also why fire has always been a prevalent part of The Sims since day one. The Victorians put poison in everything. I know I've done quite a few videos on the Victorian era, but it's so interesting to me just because how insane it was. They would add adulterations to food to make it heavy or colorful to charge consumers more for it. A very common one was called alum, and they put it in bread to make it heavier to charge more, and also they would put bleach in it. Girl, it was wild. They would also put poisonous dyes in their tea. They literally would put Prussian blue in it. Girl. And in my last video, I mentioned baby bottles. Girl, they would put borax in milk to purify it if it had spoiled and feed it to their babies. Girl, they would also put arsenic in their wallpaper. Girl. And they thought that was totally fine. If you ever go back in time, just don't ever eat food in the Victorian era. Just don't. Did anybody else not know that Lisa Kudrow is a scientist? My friend told me this the other day, and I had to look it up and research it. Lisa Kudrow, known for her iconic role as Phoebe Buffay in the Friends franchise, her father was actually a neurologist. She also got a degree in neuroscience and spent 8 years researching migraines and cluster headaches. Lisa even worked with her father on a project to determine if left or right-handedness affected migraines, which was all published right before Friends aired, and we know her as the iconic actress that we do today. You go, Lisa Kudrow! The Wild West wasn't wild. We all know the Wild West being cowboys, gunfights, outlaws, and horse chases. But actually, between 1859 and 1900, there was only an estimated 12 bank robberies in the entire Wild West. And on average, there's actually only 1.5 to 2 gun-related murders in frontier towns. And the death toll at the shootout at the Old K Corral was only 3. Compared to back then, and today, there is a lot more crime going on today than there was back then. Honestly, we probably should be calling it the Wild Wild Modern World. I'm going to tell you the story about the cinematograph. Unveiled in 1895, the cinematograph was the very first motion picture apparatus that could be used both as a camera and a projector. It was invented by Auguste and Louis Lumiere, or better known as the Lumiere brothers, making Thomas Edison's kinetoscope completely obsolete. The cinematograph could also be used as a camera and also make other copy prints of a film. The Lumieres also slowed the rate of projection from 46 frames per second used by Thomas Edison to their frames per second of 16, which is also commonly still used today. Did you know there was a mustache strike? In 1907, French waiters went on strike for the right to have a mustache. In France, prior to 1907, mustaches were seen as a symbol of class and stature, while waiters were seen as a lower class and thus therefore not mustache worthy. They got their mustaches though.